Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Dan back with Joe Kaiser on this edition of Rising. And Joe, I was suggesting in our conversation with Kristen McQuarrie, maybe, corporate sponsorships. I wasn't suggesting, I'm just trying to amplify Dorothy Brown's brilliant ideas. Corporate sponsorships of public assets like airports, and I said women's workout. I don't know if that's still a thing. Maybe curves, maybe flywheel, whatever is popular. I don't know. Whoever has the cash.
Yeah, the highest bidder.
Well, exactly. Yeah. The highest responsible bidder. Along those lines, picking up on the insight Dorothy Brown provided, Amaya Pawar. You may remember him from such failed campaigns as Amaya Pawar for governor in 2018. He's running for treasurer now because he's decided not to run for re-election as alderman. And he's got an idea about how to help finance the city. He wants to sell our water. And I don't mean like we do now, sell Chicago water to supply it to suburban communities. I mean, like, turn it into a publicly held asset with actual shareholders beyond just the abstract notion of taxpayers being shareholders.
Yeah, it's a really innovative idea. He called it publicizing, privatizing, publicizing the water. That's kind of innovative thinking that we want in city government. I don't know if you've heard of this whole water thing the city's got going on, but he's going to, take advantage of it.
So the Chicago water supply would be held in Chicago by Chicago residents ostensibly, or whoever would want to purchase shares the same way like the Green Bay Packers are held by the residents of Green Bay.
You get like a gift certificate like the Packers owners do, and it says you're an owner of Chicago Water. It's something you can brag about.
Okay, that's interesting. And also, we mentioned in passing previously, but we should perhaps put a little bit more meat on it. The Tiny Dancer proposal to increase the state's motor fuel tax to finance a capital program. Kristen McQuarrie referenced it as well. Ram saying the motor fuel tax hasn't been increased in nearly 2 decades. In that time, more than a dozen states have increased their gas tax to fund infrastructure. So why shouldn't we?
Because it's regressive and Chicagoans or Illinoisans at large can't handle a tax this large. I mean, this is one of the most regressive taxes that Illinoisans or taxpayers can face. You're talking 20 to 30 more cents on top of the gas bill you're already paying. And it's just, I think people are aware of how aggressive it is. Everyone, for the most part, drives and they feel it. And I've heard in just the last couple of days, the story only broke on I think Tuesday. People are talking about this already. Like, this is something they just can't handle.
Couple $100 more a year. What's the big deal? And look, it's not like we're putting a tax on sugary drinks, something people care about. I mean, that I understand is upsetting. It's like taking people's homes, not a big deal. The property tax, not a big deal. Income tax increases, that's not a big deal. Tax on water, bottled water, that's not a big. Bag tax, that's not a big deal. Regressive taxes in the form of gambling expansion, predatory government, that's not really a big deal. The confiscatory parking ticket system and red light cameras and all this, it's not a big deal. So, if it's not a sugary drink tax, then people don't seem to care. So what's the big deal? Now, one thing Tiny Dancer didn't mention, I don't know why, is that Illinois is one of the few states that double taxes gasoline, actually, because we place a sales tax on top of the gas tax. So you're already double taxed at the pump, and that's why Chicago routinely has some of the highest gas prices in the nation. And it's why people, me and others, have suggested what we should have with receipts at the pump is a breakdown of how much money is going to whom. The 1 cent per gallon that the actual big oil companies make,
right,
versus what the government makes on every gallon of gas that you put into your car.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense and give people a better understanding of where that money's going. And you mentioned it's a couple $100 more a year. Average motorist is using 656 gallons, give or take, a year. So that's about $130 to $200 more in taxes. That's just one, something people can't afford, but two, and we've talked about this with a number of other taxes. If you live, say, in the south suburbs of Chicago or somewhere on the eastern half of the state, you just go to Indiana, fill up there. I talk to people all the time that get their groceries in Indiana, get their gas, cigarettes, fireworks, everything. That's where they do their shopping on the weekend. You'll see more of that for people who can, or in Wisconsin or Iowa, whoever's on the border. And then people who don't have that advantage are just going to be squeezed more and more, and they just can't. It's just too much. But like you said with the receipt, I mean, people need to understand better where this is all going and why Illinois is an outlier and how much we're getting taxed regressively on stuff like this.
Although I'll tell you what, I think I've got a solution to this for those actually concerned about this potential gas tax hike. Fill up now, such that you won't have to fill up again until you leave the state on a one-way trip somewhere else. I think that's the real response that you're going to continue to get from Illinois families.